Friends, welcome to episode 18 of Vibe with Venerables. 1 hour of live Dharma and dialogue where you get to talk directly to a respected Venerable. I'm Ming, co-founder of Buddhism-dot-net and your host. Today we are joined by our dear friend Venerable Thubten Damcho. Venerable Damcho was born in Singapore, met the Dharma in Princeton University, and then took refuge back in Singapore. So she's kind of like a boomerang Buddhist. After meeting Venerable children in Singapore in 2008, she was inspired to pursue a monastic life at Sarvasti Abbey. She was ordained in 2013 and received her full ordination in 2016. And all of us at Buddhism.net are very grateful to Venerable Damcho because we have a very happy and productive ongoing collaboration with Sarvasti Abbey, and we have Venerable Damcho to thank for making it happen. And she's also a star. The video of her interview with us has 92,000 views. So she's by far the most popular guest we've ever had. I mean, she's that cool. Today, Venerable Damcho will continue our series on boundless joy. And we'll be reviewing what empathetic joy is, why we should cultivate it, and what gets into the way. So Venerable will speak for roughly 30 minutes and then answer your questions live. And as a reminder, this session will be recorded and uploaded on the YouTube later. And if you're comfortable doing so, we'd like to invite you to turn your camera on so that Venerable can see your lovely faces on the screen in front of her. With that, Venerable Damcho, please lead us on the opening prayer, and if you'd like to, a short meditation.
Thank you very much, Ming. We appreciate very much this collaboration with Buddhism.net too. It's fun for everyone involved, and of course, hopefully beneficial as well to everyone tuning in.
Fun for the whole family.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. Okay, so as always, let's just take a minute or so to bring ourselves into the space that we're in. So you can sit comfortably in the chair you're in and just settle into a meditation position. And lower your eyes. And I'll ring a gong here just to help us to collect our minds. And wherever you are, just use this time to connect your mind with your body by paying attention to the contact of your feet on the ground, if you're seated in a chair, or how it feels to have a cushion below you or the chair below you, just paying attention to those physical sensations. And for a few moments, let's bring our attention to our breath, using that to anchor our minds in the present moment. Letting go of what we were doing before this, and any plans we have for the future. And now that we've taken a moment or two to bring ourselves into this room that we're in the present, We're not just going to rest in a sense of personal peace, but we're going to direct our attention to something that's very meaningful and beneficial. And to guide us in our exploration of the four immeasurables, we will turn to a being who has cultivated these amazing states of mind and taught all the methods that all of us can follow to do the same. So we can bring to mind in the space in front of us Shakyamuni Buddha, his body made of brilliant light, embodying immeasurable love, compassion, joy, equanimity, skillful means, wisdom, all kinds of marvelous, beneficial mental states. And we can connect with our own capacity to cultivate these states immeasurably as well. Visualizing sentient beings surrounding us, all with this capacity to become fully awakened. And we can imagine leading all of them in taking refuge in the Buddha that we're visualizing in the space in front. So I believe the recitations will be posted in the chat box if you're not familiar with them. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. And together we'll recite the four immeasurables. May all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and its causes. May all sentient beings not be separated from sorrowless bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from bias, attachment, and anger. So let's pause here briefly just to let these words sink in, contemplating what it might mean to cultivate these four immeasurables. And since today's session is on empathetic joy, I thought that for the motivation for our time together, we might just take a moment to rejoice, starting by rejoicing that we are using our time in a wise and beneficial way. All of us could be doing a million other things in this next hour. I'm sure everyone has loved ones to attend to, maybe pets to feed, or gardens to attend to, or meals to make. Or, you could have chosen to spend this time going bowling or playing a video game. But all of us have instead carved out this 1 hour to look at a state of mind that actually is not so easy to cultivate. And to really think about why we might want to put our energy in this direction. Why would we want to generate joy for others' happiness? Why would we want to rejoice in others' happiness? So definitely there's some seed in us that wants so much to be of benefit to others, that cares for the welfare of others, that has brought all of us here. And that's something very precious to cherish in ourselves and in every single person who is right now in this session. And to know that this seed that we're nourishing in this brief time that we have together, may it take deep root in our minds and continue to grow and flourish, because these small seeds eventually grow into huge, tremendous trees, right, that can provide shade for many beings, that have long-ranging, far-reaching benefits that we cannot even begin to imagine. So we're rejoicing in our virtue, in our good motivation in coming together and trying to extend it to be of benefit to all beings. Let's take this little bit of time to explore this incredible mental state of cultivating empathetic joy.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Okay. So I thought very briefly to come back to this definition that I believe Venerable Thubten touched on, if some of you attended Venerable Thubten's talk last week. She talked about how empathetic joy is feeling joy at others' success, merit, good qualities, and happiness. Yeah, so fairly short, sounds very simple. But I think the main problem with this definition is the word others. Right? Like, wait a second, I'm feeling joy for others' success, merit, good qualities, and happiness. Why would I want to do that? Yeah, it's hard enough to feel like joyful for myself, right? So I don't know about you. I'm pretty hard on myself. Yeah, I get down a lot on myself. That in and of itself is like an advanced practice, taking time to like recognize my own good qualities or feel gratitude. Now you're asking me to feel happy for others, and not just the people I love and care about. Yeah, we're talking about everybody. I'm supposed to be supposed. Yeah, I mean we're talking here about trying to cultivate a mind that's rejoicing in the merit, success, good qualities, and happiness of strangers, right? Or even people who harm me. Like why would I want to do that? Yeah, so those are important things to consider. Yeah, as we get into this practice of the four immeasurables. Yeah, I mean, they're so brief and they're foundational to all the different Buddhist traditions, but I think actually these are really advanced practices. We got to get clear. Yeah, like why would I want to wish these things for others? What exactly am I wishing? And I think it's advanced too because it's challenging the self-centered thought that, again, I don't know about you, but it's definitely driving most of my behavior. Right? I wake up in the morning, I think about how to make myself happy, how to make sure I don't suffer. And it would be really nice if I could rejoice in something I do today. Yeah. I mean, that's number one priority. Yeah. So to go beyond that, to actually think about, others' happiness and others not suffering. And again, if we are all familiar with some aspect of the Buddha's teachings, right, the theory is that wanting others to be happy makes us happy. Wanting others not to suffer makes us not suffer. Brings happiness to us too. I feel, that's the theory, right? But that's something we all have to check out for ourselves because again, it's not my natural inclination. It's something that I've had to train in, to practice, bit by bit to check up like, does this actually make my mind happier? Caring for others, is it really the cause of happiness? And test that out for myself. So here, one of the key reasons that are given for empathetic joy is that if foundationally, as a basis of our practice, we already, buy into, so to speak, we want others to be happy. That's love, right? We've been working on love. We want others not to suffer. Now they are in a state where they are happy and not suffering. Right? They're experiencing success. They are experiencing the ripening of lots of good karma they created in the past. You notice they have some great qualities. They're so good at whatever they're doing. They seem to have effortless joy and happiness. They're getting all the things we're wishing them to have. So why wouldn't we rejoice? Right? It's the thing we've been wishing for as a Buddhist practitioner, right? If you've been working on the immeasurable love, on the immeasurable compassion, well, it's coming true. Others are getting exactly what we're wishing for them. Rejoice. Yeah. So in a sense, it's said that empathetic joy is the lazy person's way to make merit, so to speak. You just had to wish for those things. You didn't have to do anything to, quote, make the other person happy or relieve their suffering. It's kind of their own good karma is ripening. Lots of good things are happening for them. So we rejoice in that. And of course, we were rejoicing in virtuous things, yeah, or that things that bring genuine long-term happiness. Not like, oh, great, they scored a new drug deal or whatever. Yeah, things that are going to bring harm and pain. No. Yeah. But if they're doing something virtuous, or yes, they're receiving the benefit of past effort that they've put in, and we rejoice in that, then the theory goes that we get a share of that merit too. Yeah. For people who like numbers, I think I've read in scriptures somewhere where it says, we get half the merit. I don't know how we calculate such things. Yeah. But the point is, the idea of merit, yeah, is like that we have a positive state of mind. Yeah. There's that kind of feeling of positivity without us having had to put in the effort, so to speak. All you had to do is witness others doing something virtuous or whatever, and you're like, oh, how wonderful. They're keeping good ethical conduct. Oh, wow, they're so caring to their family. That's so great. Yeah. Rejoice. And that's it. That's where it stops. So why isn't this easy? What gets in the way? I think last week too, Venerable Thubten pointed out that really the key obstacle is jealousy. And I would say that's tied in, I think that came up in the discussion too. Yeah, that's definitely tied in with competitiveness, right? So coming back to the definition of jealousy, right? This is a disturbing state of mind that comes from the depths. Yeah. So like deep in the mind, that involves an inability to bear another's fortune. Yeah. It just sounds so sad already. Someone else is having happiness, merit, success, and we find it unbearable. It's like, why are they so happy? Why are they not suffering? Yeah, that's kind of the underlying backstory behind jealousy, right? And why is that coming up? Because we are attached to goods and services. It's an interesting translation. Yeah, it sounds so economic and technical, but it's helpful. Right? Why is jealousy arising? Below that, there's some attachment going on, right? I've exaggerated the good qualities or positivity of having some object or having some service or having some person in my life, right? But now that good or service or person or whatever situation is not happening to me, it's happening with someone else, right? And then what happens? Because of our attachment, we're not getting it, someone else is getting it. And it says jealousy involves hatred and has the function of causing discomfort of mind and not abiding in contact with happiness. So boy, that's like a super double, triple whammy, I feel, right? There's the I can't bear that someone else is happy. Why? Because I'm so attached to whatever they have. And then because I'm not the one getting it, I'm angry. Yeah. So there's so much happening at that time. Yeah. There's ignorance, attachment, anger, all coming up. Yeah, so I don't know about you, but jealousy is a pretty painful state of mind. Yeah. Has that been people's experience when that comes up? Yeah. And often it's difficult to admit, I think, when we are jealous. There's a bit of I don't even want to admit that you have the thing I want, but yes, it's there. Yeah. So fortunately, yeah, if it's a state of mind, there must be an antidote. If it's a disturbing state of mind, there must be an antidote. And of course, the Buddha has talked about many of those. And I think you explored that last week too. Yeah, but it's really important to see that, the key piece that gets in the way of our cultivating this kind of spontaneous joy at others experiencing happiness, success, merit, ripening of good karma, is this jealousy, right? It's just this really painful state of mind that can't take delight in others having happiness and freedom from suffering. And I think underlying that is a lot of kind of wrong views, maybe that's how I might put it. I don't know, when I look at jealousy in my own experience, often there's this idea that happiness doesn't just rest in an external object, but that it's fixed. It's like there's a fixed pie. Yeah, there's a single source of happiness or a few sources of happiness, and it can't be shared. Right? Or if someone else has it, it means I don't have it. And so that's very painful. And I think that's especially the case when it's, say, another human being that's involved. I mean, it's so obvious, right? It's just one person. They have limited attention. They have limited resource. They can't give their attention to everyone. And if I want it and I'm not getting it, I'm in pain. Yeah, I'm not happy that someone else is getting attention from this person that I care about, right? And I think the strongest jealousy that's come up in my life, and actually it's part of what inspired me to ordain, was to see how jealous I got in romantic relationships. I felt like I became like a monster that I didn't even recognize, when like, what? Why are you talking to your ex-girlfriend? Like, and it was really scary to see that I would hate people I had never even met. Right? Often I had not met that person's ex or whatever. You just hear about them. Like, why are they being mentioned? Or, why is a story being told about them? And to see myself hate someone I didn't know at all, or like, it was so clear as a practicing Buddhist, like you fabricated this whole illusory person, but just this idea is torturing you. And at the time I just couldn't, I couldn't figure out how to get out of that kind of mental state, short of just pause, let's take some distance from this whole object and the whole relationship altogether. Yeah. But I think now with some hindsight, it's just seeing more clearly that, the underlying the jealousy is attachment. As long as I think the source of my happiness is a single person, or, attention from a single person, time spent with a single person in a certain way, if I'm very attached to that, and then when I don't get it, then someone else has it, then of course jealousy arises. Yeah. So I think that starting out just questioning, is happiness really something I can only get from a single source? And is it really a fixed pie? Do I have to see things that way? And I feel that when we start questioning that, so much of our social conditioning comes from this idea of, resources being fixed and, you've got to win, right? I mean, I haven't been working for a long time, but that's what I recall my work experience being, it's like competitiveness. Yeah, there's only one number one. Yeah, everybody else is 2 and below. So, go for it. You've got to be number 1. Yeah, everything else doesn't matter. Yeah. So this kind of mindset that sets up like there's only one solution, there's only one person, there's only one number 1. Yeah, everything else less than, then, you get into this mind state where like you have to fight everybody off, right? Because again, resources are limited. You've got to be at the top of the heap. Does anyone have fun doing that? Very, very painful and exhausting, yeah? And again, unrealistic, really. So just telling you this story is talking about this is reminding me of one time we have turkeys here at the Abbey, a lot of turkeys, and we put out like a food offering for spirits after lunch. And one time I remember, and so we put it on a higher platform, so as to be respectful because it is a food offering. So one time I remember I went out and I put the food offering on that platform. And of course, all the turkeys are there because they know that, this offering is coming out and it's for them, not spirits or whatever. And I just saw this one turkey kind of jump up onto the platform. So that clearly was the alpha turkey, right? And they threw like a few scraps to the other turkeys, 1 or 2, and all the rest like rushed over there and started eating it. And that one alpha turkey was there eating everything else, scarfing all the rest of the bread, stuffing its face, yeah. And I thought, wow, that's how it looks in the animal kingdom. But don't we behave the same way, right? Or don't we see that so often with leaders, wealthy people, it's really animal behavior. It's yeah, like okay, let's just give a few scraps to the rest. Yeah, keep them happy that way. I'm just gonna keep everything else. And it was just kind of so stark to see, but displayed in the turkeys, and I thought, wow, I really don't want to cultivate that kind of mindset. I mean, from a Buddhist perspective, what does it lead to? You probably become the alpha turkey in your next life, yeah, if you're habituated to that. Kind of like fight off all the rest. Number one for me, all the bread for me. Like, is it worth it? Yeah. So I think when we look at kind of how painful the opposite to rejoicing is, right? This kind of jealousy, the pain of attachment and anger, and this kind of mindset that only thinks of our own happiness, then very naturally we want to apply some antidotes. So I think too, last week we talked about some of the antidotes to jealousy, but I wanted to touch on some that I also find very helpful, that help to release the jealousy and bring a sense of joy in the mind. So one of them is actually contemplating dependent arising. How so? Yeah, so let's say you see someone has success, merit, good qualities, and happiness, right? And you are feeling like, wow, they have all this stuff. I don't, angry, angry, angry. Remembering dependent arising reminds us, why is it that they have these good qualities, success, merit, and so forth? Because they created the causes, right? Maybe not in this life. Of course, if you're stuck in the really angry, jealous mind, it's like, but they have done nothing to deserve it. It's like, well, if we have a long view, they created causes in the past that are just ripening now. And so these people created the causes. That's why they're experiencing this happiness. And you know what? If it's a caused phenomena, then I can create the causes too, right? So I may not be experiencing these good qualities, success, or whatever it might be, but guess what? I can create those causes. Yeah. So in that sense, it helps us to kind of release this less than I'll never make it kind of mind, right? To see, okay, people created causes, they're experiencing the results. How about I reflect on what are these causes I want to put my energy into? Yeah. I think the tricky piece is our impatient mind, right? That's like, wait, but if I create the cause, I want to see the result now. Yeah. How come I'm not rich now? Or how come I'm not, whatever it is. And often Venerable Children talks to us about being content with creating the causes. Right? That's having confidence in what the Buddha taught about cause and effect, or dependent arising. If I create virtue, there will be happy results. Yeah. And having confidence in that. Yeah. Not so easy, but at least that's one thing that helps me to get my mind off this, it's not fair, why are they happy, why am I not? Yeah. To just come back to, their causes. Let's have the long view. I think another one that works very well, that was touched on last week, I think, was thinking of all the problems that come with getting what you wish for. Whatever you've made up in your mind that this person has all this great success, merit, whatever, remember this is samsara. Yeah, this is cyclic existence. No matter what, there's going to be a problem that comes with it, right? It's going to disappear. It's impermanent. And when you really try and observe how this person's life might be, they may be enjoying certain things you want, but for sure they're going through problems as ordinary sentient beings. Everything that we get is going to disintegrate or break or fall apart at some point. And if you've lived your whole life only getting what you wish for, then you're not going to have the resource to deal with when it falls apart. Yeah. So just taking note of that. But I think at the heart of it too, with jealousy, a lot of it arises when I am not accepting or aware actually of myself or my own capacity, my own talents, qualities, my own situation. So I think honestly that might be where we have to start, or at least that's where I had to start. Yeah, instead of, always feeling like less than and focus on they have more, to reframe that and just make kind of rejoicing within for myself actually a part of a daily practice. Yeah. To every day, at the end of the day, just pay attention to, what are some good things I did today that I really feel good about? Did I benefit anyone? Did I refrain from harming people? let me come back to the motivations that I try and live by. I don't know if other Abbey Venerables have spoken about this, but we try and wake up every morning and generate 3 motivations: not to harm any being, to be of benefit as far as possible, and to always come back to our spiritual motivation for what we're doing. So if it's bodhicitta, that's one aspect, but you might have other motivations. But to always have this kind of big picture view in whatever we do. So check up at the end of the day, right? Did I harm anyone? Okay, if I did, then all right, I need to make amends for that. But if I didn't, right, times I could have said that nasty thing, but I just stopped myself. That's really something to pay attention to and rejoice in, right? Pat ourselves on the back. Did I reach out maybe to benefit someone who was not in a good mood or feeling unwell? Pay attention to that. Rejoice. Yeah. And that is a key piece of our spiritual practice, something that we do every day, paying attention to things that we know we have intentionally done to refrain from harming, to be of benefit, to contribute to our spiritual aspirations, paying attention to that, rejoicing in that, right? And I think once we can start to notice that in ourselves, to appreciate that about ourselves, then it becomes easier and easier to extend to others. So for a while, we were training with someone, she's like a counselor and also a nonviolent communication trainer. And it was part of our kind of community building process, right? So we asked her for exercises to help build like a positive community culture. And she was saying that, this is, I guess, scientific backed research and so on, that, the theory being that, for our survival, we are often trained to just pay attention to what's dangerous or not going well, right? So that we can fix it or avoid a threat, right? And that's how we're kind of conditioned biologically or whatever it is. And so she was saying it's actually really difficult to pay attention to things that are going well. So the kind of next level homework she gave us was every day to point out 5 things that are going well in our community, verbally, or to tell someone every day, 5 things. And she said, if you find this really difficult, maybe put 5 little pebbles in one pocket and then move them to the other pocket whenever you've done them, because it was a challenge. And actually it was, maybe at that time, it was so vulnerable, it felt like, because we live together very closely as a community, maybe almost similar to what you might feel in a family. You have your own dynamics, like to reach out and be like, hey, thanks for doing X. Like, feels really awkward. Or someone's like, what do you want from me? Suddenly you're being so nice. Yeah. But, it was a helpful exercise. It started with just trying to fake it like, thanks for doing the dishes. And everyone's like, yeah, but we all show up for dishes, like, duh, But it helped me to see like, oh yeah, I often take all these things for granted. It's nice to just intentionally pay attention to things that are going well in the community, that I do point out, like how nice everybody showed up for this, thing that we have on our task list on time. And we're all happily working on it together. Yeah. Just to name it, whether internally or to the group. Yeah. So then, that's, I think, one way to keep growing this muscle of empathetic joy, right? You start with rejoicing in things that are going well for yourself that day, right? In terms of keeping to the motivations that you set, and then see if you can extend that, paying attention to what's going well in your family, what's going well in your workplace, right? And if you have the courage, even opening your mouth and telling someone that, yeah. So, and I think it helps to make it like something that, like a little kind of homework that we set for ourselves, whether it's rejoice in 3 things that I've done well today, or ways I've kept my motivation going today. And then rejoice in 3 things that I see going well in my family, or among my friends or my workplace. Yeah. So you can give that a go and see if that helps. And finally, I wanted to touch on something we call the near enemy of actually each of the 4 immeasurables, right? They have a far enemy, kind of the gross obstacle, and then one that we call the near enemy that's a lot more subtle, and it looks like it might be virtuous, or it looks like you're actually practicing the immeasurable, but it's not. Yeah, it's actually polluted. Yeah. So here with empathetic joy, it's excitement or giddiness or worldly happiness. Yeah, so that's the near enemy. So yes, the mind's very uplifted, right? You might be happy for someone else, but you're only happy for them getting short-term things. Or, like, oh, great, they have a new car. And then it's like, okay, but we all know that's like short-term happiness, yeah. Or maybe you're overly involved with someone's success because it benefits you, actually, right? So you're only rejoicing in the benefit that comes to friends and family, bracket, you might get a cut of it, yeah. And the mind is, again, overexcited, over-involved, but it's not kind of genuine, pure joy. Yeah, that simply is just, glad to see that people are happy and not suffering, which is what we were hoping, wishing for in the first place. Yeah. And also seeing the kind of long-term happiness that we're trying to wish for all beings. So yeah, so then that becomes an obstacle in our meditation. We're not holding in mind like a broad, equanimous state of empathetic joy, but it's a mind that's still agitated and disturbed. Yeah, it's too excited, or it's fixated on just, again, objects of short-term happiness and attachment. Okay, I think I've talked for a while. That's what I had to touch on for a start, and I'm very happy to open up the space for questions. If
Thank you,
anyone would.
Venerable. Yes, we have now entered the discussions session. So if you have any questions for the Venerable, or if you just want to share a reflection with a Venerable, please use the hand raising function of Zoom, and then I will invite you to unmute yourself. Venerable, previously you were talking about I think a high platform, a big turkey flew on top and kicked down a little bit of food for everybody else, and then that turkey ate everything on top. There's actually a technical term for that. It's called trickle-down economics.
Oh,
I'm almost kidding. So,
yeah.
so I have a question for you, Venerable. Something you said earlier. I want to repeat it in my words because it sounds really important, and I want to make sure I understand correctly, and then I'll lead to the question. You say that the key part to having, or rather, the key problem to solve in having empathetic joy is jealousy, or jealousy/envy. Right? And then you also said that at the heart of it is this self. It's like dealing with like so the feeling that I can only be happy because I have this person, this thing, and trying to solve for that. And then you also said that the beginning of the solution is to learn to rejoice in the good things that I do. Is that first question is that the first step you recommend for everybody? And I'm also interested to know how that how was your journey from that jealous person when you practice, in your rejoicing in yourself? How did that lead you to the wonderful human being you are today?
Okay. Well, thanks for pointing out. Yeah, it kind of sounds like possibly there's a logical contradiction there. Yeah. But I mean, so below, yes, we talk about jealousy being like the key obstacle to empathetic joy and rejoicing in others' good qualities. Yeah. And underlying all afflictions, all disturbing states of mind is what we call the self-centered thought. And that's actually an erroneous perspective of how the self exists, right? Of self. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Here, just thinking of self, this person, as the most important one, the center of the universe. Yeah. And so that's why the happiness of this one is the most important, and everything has to come to this one, right? So that's an erroneous view there. And you know what? It's a theory I'm still constantly checking out. I don't know about you. I have a lot of afflictions come up, and anytime my mind is unhappy, I always check, like, am I seeing myself accurately? I'll actually sit in meditation and check, like, how am I perceiving this self right now? What is this? Where is the self-centeredness? If I'm so unhappy right now, the theory is there must be some self-centeredness involved that's causing the mental suffering. Even if I don't necessarily think that, you know what I mean? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because when the affliction is up, it just feels like this is so true. Yeah, this is right. This is how the world is. Yeah, so where the Buddhist teachings help me is to check up, like, no, wait, but there's a lot of mental pain going on. And the theory is that it's coming from me perceiving myself in an erroneous way. Somewhere in there is the thought that I am the most important or I'm special in some way. And actually, that's not accurate. Yeah. So it's just this kind of mental checking and teasing out of that process. So my guess is that, at least in my experience with jealousy, somehow I'm feeling like super less than. Behind jealousy is a view of myself as really lousy, very really low, and the other as somehow super elevated, very high, right? They have this thing that I'm just never gonna get. And why am I not getting it? Because I suck. I'm so lousy. Oh, I didn't put in effort. I'm so lazy, whatever. It's like a two-way thing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, neither perspective is true. That person does not have the perfect world and whatever it is, yeah, or that most amazing thing that will bring everlasting happiness. And you know what? I'm not this horrible, terrible person who just is not getting what I deserve. Yeah. So it's breaking that kind of erroneous view. And I
Mm,
think when I rejoice in what's realistic, in my
mm,
good qualities, things I have the capacity to do, I'm actually cultivating a much more realistic, healthy, and beneficial sense of self.
mm,
And that's actually a practice I'm doing day to day, you know. And so it's not I'm not reifying a fixed sense of who I am, right? But it's
mhm,
just checking in. How did I do today?
mm,
According to the spiritual goals and motivations that I've set for myself. Yeah. So
mm,
I will say, in my own experience, this was a practice that one of our other nuns recommended, really. And I had a really hard time doing this practice. I don't know. I was so habituated to just criticizing myself all the time. How else do you achieve anything in life except to beat yourself up and kick yourself to the goal?
That's very Singaporean.
Don't blame your country. No, I mean, yeah, the conditioning's very strong in a competitive society, right? It's like,
Yes.
why aren't you number one? Because you didn't put in enough effort, you idiot. It's like, wait a second. Yeah, so I'm extremely, extremely harsh with myself. So to see that that's an affliction is not realistic. Why am
Mm,
I beating myself up for these things? Instead to be like, okay, what did I do well today? Instead of just ruminating. And again, that's still the self-centered thought. I'm not thinking about other people. I'm just sitting there like, what did I do wrong? I'm just like thinking about me again. It's really quite boring, and it's not realistic. Yeah. So that's why this practice of just trying to cultivate a realistic perspective, on what do I do well, what do I not do well, how can I grow, and learning
mm,
to assess that within my own experience
mm,
has been a big part of my
mm,
spiritual practice, I would say.
mm,
Instead of always relying on someone outside to tell me,
mm,
or some kind of external result, right? Like, if I
mm,
have this nice house or car, it means I'm a good person. Really?
mm,
Check up. Yeah.
mm. Thank you. Yeah, you just gave us a very good example of wisdom as an antidote to suffering, because a lot of suffering comes from wrong view, comes from the view that I suck, or this and that, that story around me, and so cultivating a more objective perception is an antidote to that source of suffering.
Hmm.
So with that, we have a question from Dr. Chang.
Hello, Venerable Damcho. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Um, First, I came late, so if you already have covered this topic, yeah, please feel free to let me know, just like, or just watch the recording. Um, I was actually like a little bit surprised by hearing like what you um, said um, at the end of your talk, like the near enemy. One of them was like celebrating when, for example, my friend bought out like a new car or something very worldly, pleasurable thing. So I actually never thought about that. And then my first thought was, wow, then what can we celebrate? Because usually people are not meditating. So like usually most of the people are not making any spiritual progress. I don't know, but most of people are like not meditators or not practitioners. So like in this case, what can I celebrate? And then I, I thought, oh, actually, but still people are like making a good karma. So like actually they are planting lots of good seeds. So maybe that's something we can truly celebrate. But after that, I also thought like, oh, actually, like why we are practicing is actually because we are living in this relative world, uh, like where there are a lot of suffering. So we do respect the relativity in this samsara world. So I thought, then should I like um, not be celebrating like when my families or friends are having something worldly pleasurable thing and then they are happy, or maybe still respecting that we are living in samsara, and then still being aware that this is just um, not the thing that will give the ultimate happiness. However, still with that awareness, maybe it's better to celebrate together. So now I'm in confusion. Can you give some advice?
No, I don't think you're confused. And yeah, thank you for this question. I think what you're saying is, as we practice the Buddhist path or maybe any kind of spiritual path, our view of happiness just becomes more expansive, right? Beyond just one lifetime or things that we get immediately. So yeah, of course, people want good material situations, and we can be happy that they have them, right? It would be very painful if someone didn't have a house to live in and was, scraping by, and you would be worried for them as their friend or family member, right? So when they do have those resources, great, yeah. And we want them to do more or have more than that, happiness that goes beyond just material things. Yeah. So I think that's where it gets a bit trickier because you're learning to rejoice in things that are not visible, right, to the naked eye or so tangible. So like you said, someone creating good karma, that's something we would rejoice in for sure as Buddhist practitioners. Or I mean, to put it in a non-Buddhist way, when people are being kind, that's what we would put our attention on and we would celebrate or rejoice in. And I think, and that's actually really different from what society rejoices in and puts emphasis on, right? So just doing that alone, is a kind of practice. And I think if you express that to your friends and family, it gets them to think a little bit differently, no? It's like instead of putting all your attention on like, wow, you got the promotion, that's so great. It's like, hey, you're so kind to your kids. I think you're such a caring parent. I notice every Sunday you take time out to bring them out to play together. And I know that takes a lot of effort and time, but that's so important and I rejoice in that, right? You get what I mean? You're putting your attention already on something different. Or like a coworker, instead of rejoicing that they're making more money, it's like, thank you for bringing a lot of harmony to our team. I really appreciate the way you try and talk to everybody and make sure that all our views are heard, right? I think people also appreciate when we see, when we rejoice in things like that versus, all right, you got the 2-month bonus. Woo, are you going on holiday? And at least I felt I intentionally did a lot of that as a school teacher in the past because the school system is so focused, at least in Singapore, and I'm guessing in the US too, so much on grades and testing. Right, so you like all the kids who do well on a paper test get celebrated. But what about the ones who are taking extra time to, after school they have to go to pick up their sibling from a different school and they have to walk over because the parent doesn't have time to do that. That's huge, right? They're taking the extra time to care for their siblings and they're basically running their household. Those are things they don't get a grade for, they don't get recognition for, So I made sure to pay attention to those students or just point out, wow, you're really responsible and I'm just amazed by how mature you are. Your parents are both working and they don't have time and you're taking care of your siblings while trying to do major examinations. Yeah. Or the kids who run a study group for their friends, right? We see that all the time. Nobody asks them to share their notes and tutor their friends for free, but there are such people. So, and the school's not going to give them a prize or an award, but as the adult who is teaching them, I made sure to just appreciate the child, name those things instead of. Otherwise, the school will only give you a trophy for winning a competition, doing well on a test. But life is so much more than that, right? Who we are as humans is so much more than that. So I think even just rejoicing in that, making the effort to name those things, rejoice in that, in all the people around us. helps to strengthen not just our values, but also theirs. Yeah, it kind of shifts just how they see a situation. Yeah. So, and then of course, as Buddhists, you have the super long-term view, but you don't necessarily have to mention that to people who don't share that view, right? Right, as in you're like, wow, you're creating good karma. In the future, you're gonna have a good rebirth or whatever that might be. Yeah, you can rejoice in that internally. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that makes me notice that up to now, I didn't, I mean, pay very much comprehensive attention to the people's virtuous deeds very much. Yeah, I think, yeah, now I definitely want to pay more attention to, to when people are doing a virtuous deed and things like that. Um, but like, um, I just missed like just a few sentences of what you said. Um, and then you also mentioned about then like should I still celebrate when people are having some worldly pleasurable things or not?
Um,
I
well,
think I missed that part you're mentioning, and then I was cut.
oh, okay. I don't know about should or should not, but as in
Hmm.
I guess we all need requisites to survive, right? So, of course, I would like everyone to have the requisites they need. Yeah, it's very painful to watch when people don't have the requisites they need and how much suffering that brings. Yeah, so at that basic
Hmm.
level, yes, of course, we rejoice people have what they need. Yeah, but then the question is,
Hmm.
then do we have contented minds, right? What do people do with that kind of worldly happiness and pleasure? And from my experience, just I don't necessarily wish for people to be like hyper rich, or I see that brings its own set of problems. It's extremely painful, to be famous or whatever, right? When we see, I do not wish that kind of it's not happiness. I don't wish that upon anyone. Do you really want to be some celebrity where you have to take a private jet everywhere? You can't like go out on the street. People will mob you. People are trying to get a piece of you. That sounds like a really horrible way to live. I don't know. And just looking at very wealthy, powerful people, they do not seem like genuinely happy people. I mean, from what I see in the news, I don't know. I can't read their minds. So I would focus much more on the internal states, perhaps. Yeah. Yeah. So to see based on the person, instead of, yeah, someone getting a car, that's just an external thing. Yeah. The causes and conditions that came about behind that for each person are going to be so different. For some people, it's like finally they have some financial stability. It means that they've worked hard, they've been diligent, they've completely turned their life around. Wow, that's the part to rejoice in, right? It's like, oh, I
Right.
rejoice that you're now responsible and, accountable for your way of life. You're not trying to live off, the rest of the family anymore, or whatever it is. Yeah. But kind of seeing where we put our focus. Yeah.
Mhm. Well, I really like your example of like securing a house because I just moved into a new house. That's why actually I was late. So like up to now, like for 1 month, I have been living like in a hostel or in a very tiny place where there is no desk when I had to work and things like that. So like, my wrist was like painful because like using computer without desk and having no private space. So like, yeah, there was a lot of stress. So actually now your example makes me reflect like how I should like celebrate and then how I can expand it to others. For example, now this is definitely worldly pleasurable things. Now I have my own room, sunny room, my own bedroom. Then like I appreciate it and then also I feel joy, but I also shouldn't become unmindful, right? I shouldn't be lost in the worldly pleasurable things. So I should I can like enjoy feeling grateful, but at the same time with the awareness that this is impermanent, right? So maybe if I can extend it to other people, maybe I might be able to do the same. I recognize like, oh wow, as you said, they are now free from the suffering and then they feel joy. So like I feel grateful, but at the same time this is impermanent. And then maybe if I'm aware of this kind of thing, I can maybe it's more likely that I can find a way um, to share Dharma with them um, when I am not like losing my mind in the worldly pleasurable things. Like, but I'm still like aware that, oh yeah, this is good, but also impermanent. Then maybe I can, yeah, become more wise friend to them, I guess.
And I just wanted to comment on the word should. Yeah, I mean, it's just helpful to check up, as practitioners, we're
Uh-huh.
like, what should I feel happy about or what I shouldn't feel happy about, as if there's like a right or wrong around that. Maybe I think about it in terms of like how expansive is my view. That's all. So, okay, you created the causes to now have your own room. That's great. Yeah, rejoice. Yeah, you've worked hard, right? To get yourself into a good living situation. But if the joy is just about your own situation, it just stops there, right? But as you said, if you expand it, it's like, wow, you know what? I have a small taste of the stress of unhoused people, or people who were like me, living in a lot of rental situations, trying to get by, trying to figure something out. I know what that pain is like, right? So now I have a different kind of compassion. May people be free of that pain. It's now you know it very well. You can very authentically wish, may people be free of that kind of pain. Oh, she dropped off.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes, bad
you
Wi-Fi,
can
I
watch the
guess.
recording. Yeah. Yeah, but then at the same time, then you wish for them. You don't want to just have this happiness for yourself anymore, right? It's like, oh, I have a room, that's great. But you're like, wow, if other people also experience this, may they someday create those causes and conditions to have good housing, to be in a secure, safe, stable situation. And then according to our different capacities, we can do what might make sense to contribute to that. Yeah. Whether it's simply like voting on certain issues about public housing in our own areas that we live in, whether it's about donating to a charity that serves unhoused people, whatever that might be. So you can see, and we're just expanding what brings happiness. That's how I like to think of it. If I just rejoice in my own situation, it stops there. If I go a bit further, I'm thinking about others, right? It benefits others, then my mind expands. My happiness expands, and also my sense of personal suffering is reduced. I don't know, you got to check that one out for yourself, I think. It really helped me when I was getting out of a very unpleasant relationship. And for the longest time, I was like, oh, but poor me, I'm so miserable. And it's like, no, wait, everybody else gets their heart broken. And you know what? There are people who've been abused in relationships, right? They just totally turned my mind. I'm like, wow, you know what? Other people are going through this too. Let's focus on others who have gone through the same misery. Is there something I can do for people who have been in difficult relationships or are abused in them? And I wound up volunteering with a shelter for women running away from like abusive situations. And that was huge help for my mind. Like really my interpersonal relationship problems are just a small part. Yeah, there's like so much else happening in the world. And watching other women live through that and how strong they are helped me to grow that kind of strength in myself. Yeah. So it was this kind of much beneficial process for all involved, I hope. Yeah.
I love what you just said, Venerable, that everything can be used as excuse for compassion, for practicing compassion, right? I mean, even our own worldly good things happen. I now have a house to live in, like that, like Dr. Chang does, right? And it's like that is used as an excuse to, also I should think about people who are unhoused because now I understand them. And for you, Venerable, also on the negative side, like you went through suffering and then you use that as an excuse also to practice compassion. And I really appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't say it's an excuse.
No, I'm kidding.
I
I'm
know, I
kidding.
know. But I got I want to use a different word because I read about it in His Holiness the Dalai Lama's book where he
Hmm.
said, if you're suffering, if you think about how others are suffering too, and you think, may my suffering reduce their suffering in some way, it will help. And I was like, really?
Mm.
That
Yes.
makes no sense. So I just tried it out. I'm like, really? And it helped.
Hmm.
Just lying in bed thinking, I'm not the only person with a broken heart. I'm like, that's true.
Yes.
Just testing out that theory, it's like, oh, yeah, so test it out. Really rejoicing for others makes me more happy. Really? Try it out.
Did that work for you, by the way? Did rejoicing others for others make you happier?
Come on, I'm giving you this talk, right?
Okay. Yes, thank you. And the other thing you said, I want to emphasize that again because it's so important. Because a lot of our suffering is due to self-centeredness, like you said. And therefore, when we think about the suffering of others, what it does is reduce that self-centeredness a little bit and thereby reduce suffering also a little bit. So that's an example of the reduction of suffering that arises from wisdom and compassion. Thank you. So I want to say something about Dr. Chang. First, congratulations on having your housing finally, and yeah, so I'm rejoicing for you for worldly success. And she's very modest, but her PhD thesis is actually on mindfulness and compassion. So she does amazing work. So unfortunately, my friends, as much fun as we had, that's all we have time for today. Before we close, I want to. We just had Singapore's 60th birthday. Yes, and for those of you, I mean, most of the team at Buddhism-dot-net were born in Singapore, and including you, Venerable Damcho. So yeah, I mean, you're family, you're part of our extended team. So for those of you celebrating, well, happy 60th birthday to Singapore. And with that, Venerable Damcho, can you lead us on a closing dedication and blessing?
Sure. So let's take a moment just again to come back to our breath. And again, we can rejoice in the virtue of everybody in this group. Like I said, coming together to explore this topic, and all of us with our sincere motivations wanting to expand the benefit that we can bring, not just to ourselves in one lifetime, but to all beings that we're connected with in some way. And knowing that this is something we can actually do just by changing our perspective. One situation at a time, one moment at a time, knowing that it all adds up and ripens in long-term happiness and freedom from suffering. So whatever it is that you heard that was useful in this brief hour, may you be able to put it into practice in the coming week. Rejoice in that. And yeah, visualize all the benefit that you've generated from this session as brilliant light at your heart that you can send out into the universe. And I'll recite the Abby's dedication of merit, which you'll find in the chat box. Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their sufferings. May the precious Bodhi mind not yet born arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you. My friends, that's all about our teacher. Thank you, Venerable, for being with us today. So this recording will be uploaded onto the Buddhism.net YouTube channel. So like, subscribe, and share. That will help us a lot. For those of you watching this on YouTube, please feel free to share your questions and reflections in the comment section. If there's enough demand, we can always invite Venerable back for a special Q&A session. For those of you inspired to practice dāna or generosity towards Venerable Damcho, please donate directly to Sarvasti Abbey. We will be sharing the link in the chat and by email. So next week, Sarvasti Abbey's admired abbess, Venerable Thubten children, will be here to close our series on boundless joy. Remember, if your joy is bounded, you ain't getting what you paid for. So don't miss it. Don't miss Venerable children. With that, my friends, thank you, and we'll see you next week. Thank you, and feel free to unmute yourself to say goodbye to the Venerable.
Hey, I just wanted to check. Jianwei,
Yes.
did I teach you in school before?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. You have to send me an email. Oh my goodness. This is my student from secondary school.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Jianwei. Oh, I'm kidding.
Oh,
I'm kidding.
thanks, Meng. Hey, how are you?
Good, and you?
Wow, I'm clearly doing well. Oh my goodness. Wow, wow, wow. We have to catch up. My last memory of Jianwei is him saying that he did poorly in school and he's going to be a road sweeper. And we had a
Oh,
discussion about how road sweepers benefit society greatly. So I hope your worst fears have not come true.
so anyway, how's your road sweeping career so far?
It's good.
Do you have any other career besides road sweeping?
Now I became a system engineer.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Coming from Chen Ming, yeah.
I'm kidding.
Hooray! Okay,
Yeah.
drop me an email. Yeah, we'll have to catch up.
Yeah,
Good to see you.
good to see you. It was so nice.